Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Artist Next Level podcast. I am super happy to be here. Welcome to 2026. Now, this is season 9 of the Artist Next Level podcast. I cannot believe it. 9 seasons, 9 years. Here we go at it again. I took a little break from, last fall to beginning of this year. Now, as we kick off the month of March, well, guess what? I'm back. Super excited to bring to you more episodes, more insight and inspiration to help you achieve your goals, help you to take your art career to the next level. And well, today is no exception. What I'm going to be doing with you today is sharing a podcast episode, a conversation that I had with my good friend Victoria Fry. This is a podcast that she recorded. She put it in her Visionary Art podcast. So that was already being published there, which I loved it. And we agreed that I could also publish it for you guys here, for our friends of the Artist Next Level, so that you can also benefit from this amazing conversation. Victoria is president and CEO of Visionary Art Collective. She runs this beautiful magazine. I've been also a juror for the magazine, which is awesome. And we always have a great synergy talking about art. We both are passionate about helping artists. So I think you're going to find this conversation to be useful, to be inspiring, and to help you take your art career to the next level.
Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Hi, Victoria. Good to see you, my friend. Happy New Year to you and to everyone who's listening. Super excited to be here. It's always fun to chat with you. We're not always, on a Zoom call or a call like this, but when we get to interact through email or Messenger, it's always fun. It's always good things. And today, it's going to be sort of like a special episode because this recording is going to be in your podcast and also in my podcast. So it's going to reach more people, more community. So we're going to sort of like, instead of like a question and answer, we're going to discuss a topic. We're going to talk about specifically, now that we have started 2026 and hopefully everyone has already set their goals and aspirations and kind of has good intentions. The question that we want to answer is, how do we keep those intentions actually alive as we go through the year? Because statistically, everyone knows that everybody starts with good intentions, just go to the gym. Right now it's full. By April, it's not going to be the case. And the same thing happens with artists. As you know, Victoria, as I know, as we run our communities, people start with great intentions. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then we all get distracted. Something happens. So we want to explore kind of like strategies, ideas. What are the things that you do, that I do, that can help our friends stay on track throughout the year? How does that sound?
Yes, I'm so excited for this. I'm so ready for this conversation. And I was just thinking, Sergio, about the last time you joined our podcast, which was actually season 1.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was, I believe, in the fall of 2022. It may have been early 2023, but it feels like 100 years ago. So I'm just really happy to be back. I know it's like a past life now. So yeah, really looking forward to this conversation with you. And I will start by asking you, what helps you once you have set your intention for the year and you have some clear goals in place? What is something that helps you to maintain that momentum and keep the energy going?
Yeah. So the first step that I have, and kind of, I try to look at things by steps, right? So first step is like spending, and I start, I'm sure you do, working on my goals for the year before January 1st. The idea is that when I hit January 1st, I already have some decisions already made. So I already worked on that at the end of the year, last year. So I started the year already with my intentions. So I work on a few things. And maybe we can go back and forth in some of those things in order. But the first thing I do is I work on an affirmation, like words that I'm going to be telling myself that are going to help me out. So what I do every year is I get a new notepad. I don't know about you, but I like to write things down on paper. For as much technology as I like, I still love the good notepad, like those rule books that that we all had in school. They're only 99 cents. So I get a new one every year, and I pick a different color, and I put on the cover Sergio Gomez version. Right now, this year is 12.0. So every year, that means I have 11 books already all filled out. So this will be my 12th one. So that's the first thing I do. Go to the store, pick a book that kind of calls my attention for the cover that I know I'm going to like to pick that book. And this one has like some sparkles. It's almost like a color pinkish because now I'm in Florida. So I wanted to also get a little bit of a more of that color, like flamingo color. So it stands out. Doesn't matter where that notepad is at. And that's my first step. The first page, if you open it, it's already an intention there. Some words of affirmation that I can read to myself to remind myself. It's not a to-do list, or it's not a goals. It's just like a personal affirmation. Say, this is my intention for the year. This is what's important for me. And that's kind of like step number one. How about for you? What is one of your early steps or things that you do?
Well, I love that. And I want to just first say, I think that's amazing that you have done that for this is your 12th.
This is my 12th year. So yeah.
That's amazing. I think like the consistency of doing that every year is probably really helpful. And also so cool for you to look back and see, right. I don't know, like from the past and what was kind of on your mind or what you were striving for at that point in time. Mm-hmm. I also spend a lot of December in reflection, journaling, and I think, so I've done this for maybe 3 or 4 years in a row now, where every December I do a full evaluation. So I journal. It ends up being maybe 4 or 5 pages, and it's like my health, my relationships, business, art, everything. And I write down what went well, what could have gone better, and then I set a goal underneath for each part for next year. But I will tell you, Sergio, something I'm starting this year that has been
new. I like new things.
It's new. Not new in the sense that it's my first time doing it, but I've never done it in January. And that is the 31-day drawing challenge.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, because it's my 3rd time doing the drawing challenge, but it's the first time doing it this month. And over the holidays, I took like maybe 2 or 3 weeks off, like really very little drawing, very little painting. And I was like, okay, I want to start the year with momentum and energy. You and I were chatting a little bit before we started recording. It's Year of the Horse. So this year in the Chinese zodiac is really centered on momentum and forward motion. And I was thinking, okay, I could just sort of ease back into my studio practice, or I could hit the ground running with something like a daily drawing challenge where I'm sketching every day for 5 to 8 minutes and just allowing that to bring energy into my practice. So that's kind of a new thing. And if it goes well, I think I'm going to just have that be something I do every January.
I think that's awesome. I love that because then you already start the year already with some sort of pattern that's going to be easy to either continue or repeat throughout the year, right? Which is really good. I'm doing right now a challenge online with some friends of 31 days. It's not art related. It's more on the business side and the spiritual side, but it's the same idea. You start the year. So we started January 1st, with something that becomes like, I look forward to the next day. And, it already kind of sets the pace for the year. Like, this is something that I want to do. And again, it's also for me the first time I'm going to do this long of a challenge at the beginning of the year. So there's some similarity there.
I love that we're discovering this. Also, right. I love that you spoke about the affirmation because that is the foundation, is the mindset. And I think that affirmations are so powerful in terms of starting to like rewire your brain. Can you share a little bit more about the power of affirmations and how you feel that will kind of shape your mindset this year?
I love that. And this is something I didn't used to do before until my wife, Dr. Yana, she started kind of working with artists more. And then she wrote the book and it's like, oh, I guess it makes sense, right? She has always talked about it. She makes her own, but okay, whatever. But, I started taking it more seriously and applying it to myself. And I can see now, after practicing it for a few years, being able to look back. I think the words that we write are so important. And I don't know, maybe even now more, I value them more now that we have AI, because it's so easy to tell AI what to do and it'll do it. But the words that I write as affirmation, those are just by hand and paper, and there's no editing. It's just kind of like what they are. And there's some powerful statements that one could make. This hat that I'm wearing today, for our friends who are listening to the podcast, but my hat says I'm an artist on a mission. That came up from about an affirmation that I did 2 years ago. I was writing my affirmation at the beginning of the year, and in the affirmation, I remember I wrote, "I'm an artist on a mission." And then I thought, if I'm an artist on a mission, maybe other artists are on a mission too. What if I make that, my year statement, and I share it with the world? So that 2 years ago, I talk about that everywhere. I'm an artist on a mission. I did an artist on a mission challenge. I did YouTube videos and podcasts, and I make hats and t-shirts and bags and everything, just with the word "artist on a mission." And that came from an affirmation, So I do believe there's power on that. It gives you continuity throughout the year. As we're talking about, how do we keep that continuous? By reading it. Once you write it, it's just step one. Then you have to read it often. Otherwise, you forget, or it's no longer, doing what it's supposed to be doing in your life.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful. I love that. Artist on a mission. And I think it's like one of the most powerful ways to frame your mindset, and then the repetition of that. If there's an artist listening to this episode and they're wondering how they might approach writing an affirmation, like, I'm curious to get your thoughts, because whenever I write affirmations, they tend to be centered on something that maybe I'm struggling a little bit with. Like, for example, if I find myself in a place of scarcity, then I'll write a handful of affirmations that are really connected to abundance, and I'll make a sincere effort to repeat those daily, which is so helpful. But I'm curious to know, just to get your thoughts on that.
I think the affirmations, I think of course are the areas that we need to strengthen our mind, and they affirmations should evolve, right? Because if you're repeating the same affirmation on that particular area where you need a strength all year, that means that maybe you're not making progress in the area, right? Because you keep repeating exactly the same thing. So I think the affirmations because it's not, I don't think of it as one full official, let's say, paragraph. So a sentence separated by, like, artist on a mission is one sentence. So that I can carry throughout the year. But another affirmation that, for example, for me, I'm distracted, right? So I really have to pay attention when somebody talks to me. One of my faults, like, sometimes, like, I'm talking to somebody and my brain is, thinking about what I need to do next. I have no idea what they said. So that's a bad habit. So part of my affirmation, last year was like, pay more attention, right? So, but that didn't stay all the year, because I was making progress on it. So, okay, so I make progress on that. I don't need to continue saying myself the same thing over and over. So that's how I see it. I see an affirmation as something that's organic and changes throughout your life and throughout your year, as we talk about keeping them up, making sure that they're still relevant, and always in the present tense. I am versus I will, or I was always about the present. It has to be a present tense affirmation, so that we actually get to live it when we talk about it. Yeah. And something that, I don't know about you, because you and I, maybe a lot of our friends too, particularly artists who maybe are not full-time in their studio, but they have another job or so. So we have also like this like duality, right? Where we have our goals and affirmations, things we want to do in the studio, but we also have our goals and things that we do in our professional life or in our career. In your case, your gallery, my gallery, or coaching programs or other things that we do. I would be interested to know also how do you like balance out as you plan your year and as you're looking at continuing the year. Do you create business plans? Do you create goals? What do you do for each sector, let's say, each parallel activity in your career?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think in a lot of ways, it's something I'm still navigating, but I try to approach most things as a balance. So I always have like a concrete plan of how I'm going to approach business or my studio practice or my art career, all the things. But I think it's so important to leave room for flexibility and for, like, how would I say it? In your intuition to come through. So sometimes I'll draft up a full business plan and then I'm not feeling it a few months in, or I'm like, this isn't feeling aligned, and allowing that to shift. I find that if I just approach things intuitively, not as much gets done. But if I, then it's like, can feel a little abstract. And I'm a person that really benefits from structure. Like, I've always been a very structured person. But if things are structured too much, then there's no room for me to see how I'm feeling about anything. Or, how I think about business the same way that I think about when you're painting. Sometimes you approach a painting with such a clear vision and idea for what you want to make, and then it shifts, and you can either, you're maybe halfway through the painting, and you can either stick to that idea, even if it's not working, and really try and force it, or you can go with whatever is feeling more aligned in that moment. Usually if you do that, it creates a stronger piece.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing in life and in business. It's like, yes, always have a plan. But I try to keep my plan not too tight. I would say a little bit on the looser side to allow room for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is so true, because the business plan kind of gives you a guide, but it's not written in stone, right? And you and I, we have experience. Like sometimes, like in the middle of the year, you had to do a move, or you have to do something that you were not expecting. It wasn't in the business plan, but it just came to you, and you had to pivot, adapt, and make those things happen. And it's so important. I don't know about you, but I found like 2025 for me was like a really weird year in all aspects. Of course, we had politics, we have also the economics, and we have everything that kind of was thrown in the mix. But also, I mean, last year I went to a season in which I was also like overwhelmed, like heavy overwhelmed, because in my case, we were moving to a new space and kind of creating all kinds of different schedules and things, how things were going to work out. So they totally disrupted my studio practice and my career in many ways. And so as I'm approaching this year, I'm also, in 2026, I'm also kind of like going back to a word that just keeps going back, at least for me, and that's what I'm also bringing a lot into now my content, which is sustainability, right? I've also saw so many artists like burnout or being like close to burnout, and I'm like, no, there has to be more sustainable ways. And I think so. This conversation, I think, kind of helps us to create those systems that allows us to grow, but not to the point of burnout, and being able to function in a more sustainable way in our career. So I think it would be maybe interesting to also talk a little bit about how you and I think about sustainability. What does that mean for you, for me? What are we doing to stay sustainable? I'm 54, Victoria. I'm old already. Okay. So I don't feel it. I don't feel old. I feel young. But when I look at the number, like, wow, that looks like a big number. But I told my daughter the other day, hey, I feel like I'm working like if I was in my 30s, like as much as when I was 30. And she's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, no. It's like the other way around. I don't have the same energy as when I had 30. That's what I meant to say. It's awesome, but it's not awesome. I don't feel it as awesome because now my energy level is not the same. So I have to now be more mindful about how do I sustain this space for the future, right?
Totally. And also, I just have to say, I remember like it was yesterday, your 50th, because you did the Instagram Live. Remember the 50 lessons you had learned?
That's right.
And I was living in Red Hook at the time, which feels like, it was, I guess, what was that, 4 years ago?
4 years.
4 years ago. And I was tuning in and I was like following along it's crazy how quickly it's gone.
This year I did last year I did a birthday bash here at the gallery. It's totally impromptu. It was like maybe like 4 or 5 days before my birthday. And I told my wife, you know what? I have a gallery. Why don't I do a birthday bash? What the heck? So I invited a friend who's a DJ, invited everybody like, hey, I'm going to do a birthday bash.
That's
whatever
so
that
fun.
means.
Oh my gosh. I wish I could have been there. I have no doubt it was amazing. And now I remember actually seeing your post on social media about it.
It was really good. We had a great time.
I love that. But to your point, sustainability is something that's so important to think about. It's something that is always on my mind because I will say, I'm very aware of my strengths and areas of growth. And an area of growth I have is that I do not always work in the most sustainable way. Like I work a lot. I work really long hours. I work on weekends too sometimes, which was a non-negotiable I had for a while until I realized that there's literally no way around it when you're building your own business.
I'm guilty as charged.
Yeah, guilty as charged. But there are certain things I have in place. I would say that I'm moving in a more sustainable direction. I'm definitely not there yet. And I think the way that I'm working now, I could not work like this forever. It would be incredibly draining. But there are some things I've put in place.
What are some of the steps that maybe we can share?
Well, yes. And I'm really excited to hear what you say as well, because I think it could be really helpful for me and for artists listening. But there are a few things. So one thing is, it sounds obvious, but I have to schedule breaks throughout the year. I just have to have non-negotiable times where I am either not working or I'm working very little. So I know, for example, after we have an art fair, that's either going to be a week that I'm dialing back on meetings or pausing on meetings and sessions altogether. I also have times throughout the year where I give myself permission to go a little bit deeper into my studio practice because that's really important to me. It's part of that push-pull balance, I think, that you have spoken about as well. Mm-hmm. And one thing is like on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis, I have protected times that I'm not working. So for example, I do not schedule meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning. And I've followed that for years now because the morning is a time for me to go for a long walk, to exercise, to sketch, to listen to music, to just really get into the groove of the day. And I think that is a practice in sustainability because I know that if I don't do that, I'll crash out by the end of the day,
Right.
And then also, even though working on weekends is sometimes inevitable, I always, as much as I can, and I would say I follow this about 95% of the time, I try to have at least one day a week where I'm fully offline. So I'm not on social media. I'm not on email. I'm really not on technology at all. So that might be a Saturday, it might be a Sunday, but I have a full 24-hour period every week where that's the case, because I think for artists, for entrepreneurs, so much of what we're doing now is on social media, but I cannot be on social media 7 days a week personally. I have to have protected periods where I'm fully offline because I love social media and I want to preserve my relationship with it.
Right.
I want to continue to love it. And I know that I will not continue to love it if I am on all the time. So, I think to answer your question, it's like having boundaries and having protected times. But what has been helpful for you?
No, I love that. And I totally agree with you. One of the ones that it's a common also how I start my day too, just like you. I don't go into Instagram or any of socials until about maybe 3 hours or so after I been fully awake. So I like to wake up early. I'm an early riser. Personally, fortunately, I'm the only one in my house who's an early riser. My kids and my wife, they like to wake up later. So that works on my benefits. I had no distractions at all. So I wake up in the morning and give myself time to pray, to also read, to meditate, to listen to music, to have a little walk with my dog outside. So that kind of is becoming a rhythm where it's taking now more and more time, which I love it. I used to rush it. I used to say, well, it's important how I start my day, so I'm going to start this way. But I used to even though I was practicing it, I was looking at my clock, oops, okay, it's been too long. I need to get back to work. Now I'm not doing that. So it's been now a couple of months where I'm like, you know what? It's going to take what it's going to take. I'm not even going to look at the time until I'm ready. So I've been enjoying a lot to see the sun rise. To me, that always I don't know, for many years, seeing the sunrise has always given me a good start in my day. So I love to see that. And so that's one practice like you, protecting the first hours of my day is so important. And I can see the change now after years of doing that, and particularly now spending more time doing that, I can see the difference on how the day goes and how the day moves after that. And then some others are also kind of like small little practices that I've been doing. For example, one simple one, right? It might be a good hack for some of our artists here, is like when somebody sends you a text, unless it's your family or somebody super urgent, don't answer right away. Even if I can, if an artist sends me a text, sorry artist, or somebody, another person, except Victoria, right? If somebody sends me a text, even if I can answer, I'm saying, you know what, I'm not going to answer right now. Of course, unless it's an emergency. Because the moment you start answering people right away, you kind of like prime them, like they have your full attention and like they can interrupt you whenever they want, right? Of course, it's an emergency or something super important. Somebody's coming to drop off artwork and they are lost. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to answer. No, none of that, right? But like texts that are not essential, that we all get throughout the day, that I used to be like, if I'm working on something, somebody tells me, let me stop and let me reply that. So it totally takes you off flow, totally takes you off rhythm of whatever you're doing. So now I purposely like, just let it sit. Let it be there for a while. So I have some texts that I have to answer at some point today, but it's okay. They're not going to be upset because I'm still answering the question or we're still having that conversation. But it helps me to give myself permission to say, you know what I'm doing right now is important. And I'm not going to allow others to be distracting, even for good reasons, good causes, just because they just send a text. But we live in a world that you feel that pressure, like beep, beep, you hear the phone ringing and you're like, I need to answer. So that's a small practice that has done great things, that I can see the effect of it. So that's one of the main ones that I do. Other ones, like good practices that I've been also doing that kind of helps me protect the sustainability aspect of things, is the booklet that I just mentioned. At the beginning, that booklet is not really a journal for me, but rather more of a way to write down thoughts, ideas, things that I'm thinking, things that I hear a good podcast and like, I love what they said. So I go, it gives me somewhere where I can write it down. What things are working, frameworks that I want to teach to my students, to my artists, or in my podcast or my YouTube. Like, I love frameworks. I love to create a little framework, which is an idea broken down into simple 3 or 4 steps, or that I can teach, right? So I have now a collection of frameworks that if I need to speak about selling art or whatever it is, I can just look at the framework and just explain it, make a whole talk about it without having to pull slides or, just look at my framework. So and many of those have come from little sketches, like a triangular shape, or like, how can I divide this into 3 aspects? What would be 1, 2, and 3? Just from that practice. So that in itself has made me more sustainable in my business, because I have a place where I can dump those ideas, let's say, and I can always go back to them. And like you mentioned, this perfect example, like 5 years from now, I can go back and look at what was working for me in 2026 and maybe what wasn't. And maybe I may want to revisit something that was working at some point, right? And that is so important, that I find that I think it's helps me to make it sustainable as we go to March, June, July, having that booklet and being a year-long little volume. It has made a huge difference for me over the last few years. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, these are all such good points. I love what you're sharing about the texting. And I'm the same, like just with taking time to reply, because I also think there's an energy to it. And it's like, I don't know, just keeping it kind of calm and
right.
Responding later versus feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to. It's just part of, I think, one thing that I always think about in January is like, well, I start thinking about it in December for the next year. And I think it's something I'm actually always thinking about, even as the year progresses, which is like, what kind of person do I want to be? And how do I want to respond to things? Like, do I want to be the kind of person that's frantically responding to a text as soon as it comes into my phone? Or do I want to be the kind of person that can like receive, pause, wait, and then respond later? Like, that's the kind of energy I want to be in personally. And so it's like thinking even bigger, like, as I think about the year ahead, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of artist do I want to be? And then from there, how do I embody that on a day-to-day basis, even in really small moments. Which is connecting, I think, to what you're sharing as well.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned right now the person that we want to become. And that also reminded me about something I wrote this morning to my communities about how many or what people do you want to bring with you in 2026? It's a good opportunity also to edit our inner circle, right? And to clear up some maybe relationships or connections. So the way I position, like, who do you want to keep close and who you want to keep within arm's reach, right? Actually make a list. Who's your close and who's your arm's reach? Like, I don't mean like be mean and just, stop talking to people, but like you're an arm's reach person. And then another who's close. And then being very selective on who are those who we bring close. What value do they bring to us and what value do we offer to them, right? I think that's important. So tell me a bit about how you do that too.
It's so funny you're saying this because I just went through this exercise. And as you're sharing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fresh on my mind because I actually haven't always done this. In fact, this might be the first time in my life I'm really doing this. And the gauge for me, this is the only thing that I'm basing it on in terms of who I'm keeping at arm's length and who I'm bringing into my inner circle. How do I feel after we connect? If I feel drained, I cannot have that. Even if I adore that person,
right,
I cannot have them in my inner circle. And I started to really think on this and notice where, from what interactions I was feeling just really exhausted after. And I just had to set that boundary because who we spend time with on a day-to-day in our personal lives, in our working relationships, like it's so essential that there are people that lift you up and energize you. Sergio, like, because I feel this every time I chat with you, every time I talk to your amazing wife, Dr. Yanina. And also, like, I think about artists that I meet with, and I feel this way, where after you have the interaction, you feel better than you did before.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's the vibe,
Right.
That's the vibe. And if I don't feel better than I did before, if I actually feel like something was taken out of me and I feel more tired than before the interaction, I'm getting better at not just noticing that, but noticing that and then allowing that to guide me. Whereas I used to maybe notice it, but I wouldn't really like. So I don't know. Hopefully that's been the biggest, just paying attention to how you feel in your body after each interaction.
And I think it's really good because, it might sound like selfish, like, we just wanted to keep people to make me feel good. But at the same time, it's not selfish because we give so much, to others that we need to be very careful, right? Because if you're always giving, but you're not really nourishing and you don't bring others who give you, then you're going to dry it out, and speaking from experience too, we got to have those people that we bring into our inner circle. And sometimes it's good to even, I find, like, adapt people that you might want to bring in your inner circle that are, even like maybe even newer to your network in a way. Like, really there's something about that person that really I feel the chemistry, that feel the connection, that, we add value to each other. I'm going to give it a shot, even if you don't know the person really well, but, just kind of approaching that person and nurturing that relationship more, So it's as much about we prune out, also give also new opportunities to other people that we haven't. Like, for us, like here in Florida, it was kind of like we had to do that because we moved here. Our family is still in the Chicagoland area. So we only knew a handful of people. So we had to start from scratch. And now we have friends, but it took 2 years, to find even people that we could bring into our inner circle. It's hard. And the older you get, everybody has their friends. So it's hard to break in,
Yeah. And it's making a sincere effort. Similarly, I was in California for a while. I moved back to New York City and I kind of felt like I was starting over. And whenever I meet someone now that I just have a really positive interaction with and I just feel better after, I make a sincere effort to cultivate that friendship or that relationship, even if I'm tired, even if I don't feel like showing up, I push myself. My mom always says to me, you'll feel better if you just go and you do it. And if it's the right person, you always do. Last year, I set a goal of making more friends in the art world. So either artists or creative entrepreneurs or people that kind of do similar work to what you and I do, working with artists. And I met like 3, maybe 4 entrepreneurs or leaders in the art world that I really became friends with on a personal level. But a lot of that was showing up and really putting the time and energy into cultivating those friendships, like no matter how I was feeling. And it was so rewarding. So I think it's always worth it if it's the right person.
Yeah. And giving yourself the opportunity to try it out. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes like you're like, and I always think about, just because it's my good timing doesn't mean that it's the other person's good timing. Like I may have like the great timing and like, okay, Victoria, let's become great friends. But if Victoria right now, you're going through something or you're super busy, I cannot be mad at you because you don't want to, right?
Yeah.
I have to respect the other person's time and where they are in their season, which is not always known or visible or public. And that is very important, respecting that sometimes, like, this person I really want to get close to, for some reason, didn't happen, didn't work. It's okay. It's not that person is mean or bad or doesn't like me. It's just not a good time. Maybe 1 year from now, 2 years from now, maybe it'll happen. But giving that respectful approach to others, I find it to be really good.
Totally. And everything you're sharing actually centered on relationships and friendships and putting that time and energy in, and also just being mindful of who it might not feel aligned with, is so connected to sustainability, because I truly feel that your community, those are the people that are going to uplift you when you're feeling
absolutely
exhausted or you start questioning yourself. I think, as you started sharing at the beginning of the episode, so many of us start the year strong and motivated and excited and ready to go. And then we start to gas out a little bit by the end of the spring, or even sort of at the, peak of like March, April. But it's your community, it's your friendships, it's your relationships that give you that strength. So investing in, like I always say for artists, connecting with other artists is like the best thing, and allowing them to be a source of strength for you when you start to feel like you're running on empty.
Yeah, I totally. And there's so many ways to do it right now. There's communities like yours and mine. There's also social media, YouTube, and so many other ways. Podcasts. I love podcasts. I'm not YouTube too. That's why we have one, because we love sharing and we love learning. And I love like put my headset. And I feel like I'm in that person's community all of a sudden, because I know that person for the things they share and they talk about, and it's just kind of like there's so many ways in which we can connect and build ourselves, build each other. And maybe let's talk. I would like to approach also, I think, one of the things that adds a lot of stress for people, and maybe the one thing that makes us all distracted, which is social media, right? I think that's one of the things that, at least in my experience, of course, it's one of the difficult things to manage year round. Right? Because of obvious reasons. It's distracting, it's taking time, it's complex. I remember when Instagram used to be take a picture, put a filter, and then share it, and you were done with it. Now it's make a reel.
I miss those days.
It's like all these things. Oh my God, it's like a part-time job. So,
totally.
What are you doing, like, as you start 2026? Have you done any, or maybe something that you have already been doing that has working with you? To being able to manage, or to have you done any changes, or kind of like what's your social media world kind of strategy, or whatever you want to call it, for 2026?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question. I think so many artists share with me, and I'm sure they share with you, that it can feel exhausting. And I talk about social media a lot, and part of that is because I built my entire company on Instagram, and I have 4 Instagram accounts right now. Yeah. So it's a huge part of my life. However, the reason that I still love social media and I'm not burnt out is because of the way I have framed it for myself mentally, and also the boundaries that I have around it. So the first thing, whenever I talk with an artist and they say to me, I have to post on social media, it's draining, I wish I didn't have to, I always say, let's take a look at how you're wording this, because you don't actually have to do anything. You get to post. You get to post. And how lucky are we that we actually have a platform for the first time in history where you can share an artwork and it could potentially be seen by thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in an instant. That's a blessing and a gift. So no matter, I know social media can feel like a double-edged sword. Yeah. And I don't want to diminish anyone's feelings around it by saying that, but I do think at the end of the day, it's a really powerful and valuable tool that we're lucky that we get to have access to. I mean, it's changed my life. It's changed many artists' lives. Right. I think the key is, so first of all, reframing it that way. Like I feel that it's a privilege that I get to use Instagram. But the second thing is once we kind of reframe how we're thinking about it, as you were saying, Sergio, and I shared earlier in the episode, you have to have boundaries. So I also do not check any social media app until I've been awake for 3 hours. So when you said that, I was like, we're totally aligned.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about this extensively. I have to wake up, go for a walk, eat breakfast, drink coffee. There's a whole mess of things I have to do before I'm opening any social media app on my phone or computer. Which keeps me in a good mindset with it because it feels like it's part of my life and not my entire life. Right. And then, having protected time, periods of time where I'm not on social media at all. So usually that is one or 2 full days a week. But over the winter break, I took 5 days or maybe a week, probably closer to a week, fully offline, which is something I needed to do. And then I was excited to get back on. I was like looking forward to opening up Instagram and seeing what everyone was posting. But in order to get to that place where we feel excited to be using it, we have to take those breaks. And then I also limit my social media use. So when I'm actually on Instagram specifically, I try to keep it to maybe 20 minutes at most. I don't do the doom scrolling. If I catch myself doing that, I just remind myself that that's an invitation for me to close the app. So I try to just hop on, post something really intentional, and then hop off. So it's like, I think really approaching it with intention and mindfulness is the way to continue enjoying it. But I'd love to hear how it's been for you, because I know you also manage more than one social media account, and it's been a huge part of your journey.
Yeah, totally. And over the years, I've tried many things from automation to virtual assistants to right now, I'm back to operating it all myself, at least for a season. And so I have a couple of things, just like you, I think intention is the most important. So what I do now and the practice that I have is when I'm ready to pick up the phone for either Instagram or YouTube, whichever platform it may be, is I make a quick decision. Am I going right now to work or to like entertain or escape or whatever? So that way I can give myself the permission mentally for either or, right? So if I'm going to work, then that means the moment I open the Instagram app or any social, I'm not going to be scrolling, but I'm going to think about, okay, what's my post? What's my reel? What am I going to be saying? What do I want to convey? Like really focus on work. I finish my work and I leave. And that also allows me that when I say, okay, no, actually today I'm coming right now I'm coming just to entertain, you see what other people are doing or watch some funny videos. Then I'm giving myself permission to do that. And I don't feel guilty of like, I should be working, I should be posting, because I already primed and I already made the decision before I click on the social media button to know for which of the two I'm coming. And I found that since I've been doing that for maybe probably a little bit over a year, that has totally helped me, because before, I used to spend a lot of time, and it was a combination of work and pleasure, like work to some work, and then also look at a lot of reels and things. But time can be consuming, and before you know it, you spend a lot of time. So this has helped me a lot to differentiate between the two and to give myself that permission to operate either one. Yeah. And another thing that I'm doing right now, which for this year, I started a little bit last year, but this year I'm really plan to be more proactive on it, is like picking the platform that I'm going to nurture the most. I like the way I always put it, like Monopoly. In a Monopoly game, you have many properties many places, right, where you can put properties. And so I see all social medias, like wherever you go, even more obscure ones, I probably have a profile there, right? Yeah. When I see a new one comes up, I say, I'm going to go check it out. I go check it out, I put a profile there, and it's there, right? It's got my links or whatever. So I claim my name, but I'm not going to be invested in it all the time. So for the last few years, I've, put a lot of effort and attention on Instagram. But this year in 2026, I'll still show up there, but I'm actually putting a lot more attention on my YouTube. And there are specific reasons why. I really want to continue with YouTube, more proactive. One, because now with the shorts, it's like if you had Instagram there, you can put a lot of the short content, which is more of my art, and then use the long form content for my help to the artist. And I can also include my art. So I'm right now really in love with YouTube a lot more. I found, really good growth in the last few months in YouTube versus Instagram. And so I'm focusing it more, right? So it's been like a specific, like making a choice. Like I cannot be as active in YouTube as I am in Instagram if I just want to add more. So everything that I need to add in 26, I'm looking at, okay, what do I need to release or remove, right? So if I wanted to be more active in YouTube, I have to then take some time off from my Instagram. So I'm still there. I'm still posting, but it's not going to be as what I used to be, because now I chose that YouTube is going to be the platform where 2026 I'm going to focus on. So I find that helps me to be sustainable. Mm-hmm.
Totally. It's like the way that you're describing your approach with so many of these things, these different aspects of building a life and career as an artist, it comes down to mindfulness, and it comes down to approaching things with intention, because also a lot of these things like social media can be really consuming if we're not approaching, like we have to approach them with a sense of mindfulness and intention and thoughtfulness. Otherwise, it's so easy, like specifically with Instagram, for the hours to just all of a sudden we look up, you just scroll and it's like, oh my gosh, I spent half my day on Instagram. How did that happen? And it's like, that's why you really have to, like, I love how you said you kind of make a plan before you go on. Right. And then you find that not only is your experience more enjoyable and it's more sustainable, you don't burn out really. And the quality of your content is significantly higher as well. Like it benefits you and it benefits everyone that's following you. Mm-hmm. But I think so much of it is just, and I think we could also say when it comes to your studio practice, like, approaching, like in terms of thinking about things that can feel consuming, like you're building you've built a business, I'm building a business. And if I'm not also mindful of that, then I'll work all day and night without tending to my studio practice. So it's like having healthy boundaries around everything. Mm-hmm. Because my work can be totally consuming. I have to get to a place, or I make a sincere effort, I should say, to get to a place every day where I still have a long to-do list, but I'm choosing to pause and go into the studio, even with things being unfinished, even with unanswered emails, because I have to, or I don't want to say I have to, because I'm choosing to go paint or draw.
Right. No, I love that. My wife and I, we had a meeting at the beginning of the year as we were planning, for the year and such, about content, things like we're thinking about. Well, overwhelm really you cannot completely remove overwhelm from the equation, because it's impossible unless you move to the mountains, you don't talk to anybody, you never open your social media.
It's just part of it.
You disappear, right? So overwhelm is going to come anyway. Either you plan it or not, overwhelm is going to come at some point. But the key is not to let overwhelm to run our lives and to run freely, but first find like the red flags when okay, this is a red flag, I'm getting overwhelmed. What am I going to do to intentionally, as you mentioned, intentionally do something about it so that it doesn't lead to burnout, where overwhelm is not the evil, but burnout is, right? Overwhelm, we're going to have it, but let's learn to manage it so that we don't lead to burnout. And we kind of both decided how we're going to define burnout. So, because when we were talking about it, we were kind of like thinking different things when we talk about burnout. So we come like, well, burnout is the point where you get to, that paralyzes you. Because either you get sick or mentally you are done or whatever it is, right? So that's burnout. Otherwise, if you're just having a hard time, you're overwhelmed, not necessarily burnout. Burnout is like when you're like, I'm toast, right?
Yeah.
I hit the bottom, which unfortunately I've been there myself, years back, and it was not pretty. I was down for months. Took me to a place of illness because I just wore myself to death. So I don't want to ever be in that place again. So I need to be able to, when I'm overwhelmed, realize that I'm overwhelmed, find the red flags and be able to do something about it so it doesn't get me to that point. And I think that's the key.
Totally.
Yeah. And being able to, I think, articulate those things so you know when you see it. What is burnout to you? What is overwhelmed to you? What is those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think paying attention to the warnings. Is it Oprah that says it starts as a whisper, and if you don't listen, then it becomes a scream, and if you don't listen to the scream, but like it keeps elevating or escalating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, something I've noticed is I'll start to get really irritable because I'm not like an irritable person at all. So when I start to, and this happened right before winter break where I was like in meetings and I was like, oh my gosh, who is this person? This is not me. This is not good for anyone. Like I just started to find, I mean, it probably wasn't even detectable to like anyone I was talking to, but I could feel it.
You could feel it, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if anyone else is even picking up on this, but I can feel it. And it is a clear sign that I need to pause. But, just circling back to what you and I were both talking about, the morning routine and how we both share that and prioritize. If I skip my morning routine, within a few hours, I cannot power through meetings the way that I normally can. I will start to feel irritable. I'll have difficulty concentrating. I can't show up in the same way. So it's like, it all kind of connects back to how when you pour back into yourself and you're mindful and you uphold your boundaries, then you can be that version of yourself that can move through the overwhelm so much easier. Like you can navigate it. You can, and I know Dr. Yanina she came as a guest speaker for my community program in the fall. And that's something she was talking about too. She was sharing a little about her morning routine and saying it like creates a buffer, I think is how she put it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's nice that each one of us can create that routine according to who we are. There's no like one magic routine that works for everybody. That's the beautiful thing that, each one of us listening, we can create our own routine and invite everyone to try different routines, don't just pick one, but try other routines, to see what it feels like. I wonder if I do this, I wonder if I do meditation, I wonder if I do walking and then see at the end which ones start to become good for you, which ones you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy the morning routine, then it's not going to last, right? And that's what I found too. So like, giving yourself a chance. For me, like when I'm starting to feel like the routine is feeling like, literally a routine, like too much of the sentence, then it's time for me to change it. And sometimes it's just as easy as instead of going sitting down in the front of the house, I'm going to go and sit down in the back or a different window or a different couch, something that kind of shifts things so that it feels like it's refreshed in some way. And, removing that obstacle that really quickly can, stop being something positive and now it becomes a chore.
Totally. I think that's really smart too. Like your daily routine, what keeps you grounded doesn't have to look the same every day, but there's flexibility with that. But I think it really comes down to, like, as you're sharing, just having intentional windows of time where you're connecting to yourself. And I think for artists, there will always be so many disruptions and things, external factors that pull us away from the work, always, every day. It's actually really easy to not make our art. Like it's so much harder to make the time to create the work, but we have to, that's, I think, why it's so important to protect our practice and be mindful, because I try to remind myself too, I'm like, every minute that I'm on Instagram is a minute that I could be drawing, or, like we don't have endless hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, when I was in college, I used to like admire like a CEO who was a CEO and then had time to write a book and he had time to do this. And like that person has the same hours as I do, right? And then as I got older, I began to realize, well, it's all about how we use those hours, right? How how intentional, what are the things that we choose to manage and what are the things that we choose to let go and let other people manage, trust what they are doing too, so that if you try to micromanage everything, then you'll not have time for anything, because you'll be just trying to control everything, being a control freak. I'm not a control freak, fortunately, but I'm maybe because I'm too distracted, but I have to work against that. I wrote the other day a post about, I'm a distracted mess, meaning that easily my brain goes places, right? Sometimes, like, we go to, let's say we go to a retreat or something and they're doing meditation. My wife, she's like totally enjoying it. I'm like, have such a hard time after 5 minutes, like, stay focused.
Oh, totally. I'm the same. It's like torture. Yeah.
Torture. It's like torture.
Totally. I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin when I try to meditate. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. But I know that it's like objectively a good thing to do.
Right. Yeah, but you have to find the way in which you do it, right? In which kind of works. So for me, like, prayer works a lot better. I mean, it's a form of meditation too, right? It's a form of calming down, looking inward, putting yourself in tune. That's what's at the end is the most important. Not letting the pace of life just rule you, and toss you back and forth. And I think that's important. And I think it'll be really interesting to hear from our friends, in the comments and both of our podcasts, what practices are they doing or what are they using that has helped them in the past to also become sustainable, or what they're planning to do this year. Sometimes by sharing it, that already helps you to become more, in tune to what you said you were going to do, just because you share it with others. Like, Victoria, you and I, we just shared, right, a little bit of what the intentions are for the year, how we're planning to keep them. So I'm sure, our friends, maybe at some point they'll see you or they see me, but hey, are you keeping up with that?
Yes, it's the accountability.
Right.
No, I love that. And also hearing what's helpful for others. And Sergio, I'm curious to know, as we look ahead to the year, if you had to choose like one thing that is going to be helpful for you in terms of staying grounded, keeping things sustainable so that you are not crashing and burning halfway through the year, which I feel like I experience almost every year, but this year will be different.
Right?
Is there like one key thing that you continue to come back to that you would advocate for?
Well, the one thing this year specifically is that's what I shared on my last YouTube, is the add and subtract. So if I decide to add something to my schedule, I have to remove something out.
I love that. So
if I'm going to add something, I got to look at what am I going to subtract, because my schedule is full, it's tight. I cannot just say, yes, I'm going to do it, or say yes to this or that opportunity, without having to consciously subtract something and be okay with what I'm subtracting. So I'll have to practice the one thing I don't like, math.
No, that's so true. I also tend to say yes to everything. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I have so much on my plate? Why do I do this to myself? Like because I just pile it on without taking anything off. And then, it can feel overwhelming. So I love that. I think that's
it happened to me this morning. Like, somebody called me, send me a message, hey, can we do a workshop? It'd be great. And I was about to say, oh, that would be awesome, because the inside of me is like, yes, let's go help more people. And then, but I went like, oh, shoot, wait a minute. No, I need to subtract. So I replied, I said, you know what? Let's wait a little bit. It's not time just yet.
Yes.
Because I need to find what I can subtract before I say yes to that. So it's hard.
Right.
Not easy. The math is hard for me. So
totally.
I gotta figure that out as we go.
Yeah.
How about you? What you will be advocating for in 2026?
Well, a lot of things, but I think it's going to continue to be, for me, protected time offline. Because I have also found, similar to you, like, I've built my whole company essentially on social media. And so it's a lot of computer time. And I think that I've already started to do this. So essentially anything on a weekly basis, as I was working on my calendar and schedule for this year, that is not an essential thing for me to do on the computer or on my phone, I've kind of gotten rid of it. And so now I feel more intentional with how I show up online. And And also just like bookending the day, starting the morning with a walk, which I've always done, but and especially as it starts to get a little bit warmer, ending the day with a walk. I think that being outside in nature, it goes without saying, but it connects directly into our creative practice. So in a time like in this digital age where we're so tied heavily to our phones and computers, it's like only showing up online for the things that are absolutely essential and then maximizing the time that you're offline to connect with your practice, to be in nature. And I think that's the balance. So my goal really is just to stay true to the boundaries that will allow me to keep that happening.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to help us keep growing, right? Not just,
totally.
We don't want to survive 2026. We want to grow and excel and experience greater successes in our career. And, for all our friends, for both of our communities, everyone listening, I think, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. And that's what we all wish, that we all experience greater successes in 2026. Because the challenges will be there. The distractions will be there. The politics will be there. The economics will be there. Everything that's already in place will continue. But how can we move? How can we continue pushing forward?
Yeah.
It's important. And then we didn't even talk about AI, which is another whole conversation.
We'll do another episode for sure.
Another just for that. We'll be good.
Just for that.
Our friends might like that too.
I would love that. And I think just to wrap up with in connecting to what you're sharing, for me, it's coming back to that question. Who do I want to be? How does that person show up? How do they respond to these challenges that will inevitably arise this year? And I always try to think of the highest version of myself. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling a little bit stressed or fatigued or whatever, like how would that higher version show up? What would she do for herself to handle this in the way that she's most proud of, and that always, like when I think from that perspective, helps me to make a better choice, or like make a choice that feels more aligned. So
I love that. You know what we should do, Victoria?
Yeah.
We should schedule an episode at the end of the year so we can go back and see if we kept up with our
oh my gosh, can we please?
How we did an accountability. How did we do?
I already have a feeling I'm going to be like, Sergio, I tried. I really, really tried.
I'm going to say my math went bad.
we did our best. I think, what I think part of it though is like from an accountability perspective, it's checking in with yourself like on a regular basis to make sure you stay on track. And also knowing it's not going to be perfect. There might be times where you do take on something without subtracting. There might be times that I'm sure like I'm online for way too long one day or 1 week or whatever. And but like, I think part of it is giving ourselves grace as well,
Absolutely.
But just being mindful.
I love it.
Amazing.
That's very cool.
Well, Sergio, thank you so much. This was so inspiring. I'm so honored to have you back on the podcast and to have this conversation with you. So really appreciate your time.
Victoria. Likewise, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to a friend from many, many years. Even though we have never had the opportunity to meet in person, we always kind of
how crazy is that?
So hopefully this year that might happen. That might happen this year. So excited that
I'll get down to Florida,
or somewhere we'll see each other, which will be awesome. We'll take some pictures. We'll share them. That would be fun.
Yes, I would love that. Okay, that's a really good goal. Maybe December.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll make it happen. Yeah. Let's share with our friends for both of our communities where they can find us and contact us. So, Victoria, where can everybody find you? I'm sure everybody knows you, but where can they find you if they happen not to know you?
Yes. So my company is called Visionary Art Collective. You can find me at visionaryartcollective.com or on Instagram at Visionary Art Collective, or also my Instagram for my art is Victoria J. Fry.
Awesome. And by the way, really quickly, we are going to be working very soon on a show that I'll be curating with you guys. And then we'll talk, see if you can do the same for us. That would be awesome.
Yes. And Sergio, will you share your links as well? And I'll put everything in the podcast notes.
Yes, of course. So mine, you can find me at sergiogomezonline.com. That's where you'll find everything about my art. On all socials, you can find me at Sergio Gomez Art. And my program for artists is theartistnextlevel.com.
Amazing. Yeah. Such a good conversation. Sergio, thank you again. I feel so inspired after talking with you, and always a pleasure.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.